Hey, American Lit. Happy last day of CSE of the 1920 school year. You made it, and it's been a pleasure working with you guys for the 3 quarters of the year that we were able to do so in person. And I wish you all the best going into the summer and onward in high school as well. To wrap up the school year, most of you should be primarily focused on finishing your summative writing assessment for this quarter. And to help you do that, I have drafted a conclusion that I've added onto this document, which is attached to the Q4 SWA assignment. This is the demo Q4 essay. So you'll note I did redact. That means I omitted or left out the second and third body paragraphs. So while my demo only has one body paragraph, yours will need two. So just make sure that you have a second and third body paragraphs there. But I did give you a conclusion. So we'll go through this and talk about the different pieces and what you'll need. So let's read through this. In conclusion, the importance of strong leaders to channel the emotions and energies of their followers to achieve social justice and liberation cannot be understated. All right, and so you see this is, there's a transition starting here in conclusion, and we also see a restating, not copying, right? We should not be copying the thesis, but a restatement of this, which is basically making the connection between strong leadership and the success of achieving freedom for all people. And so this restatement does that. You don't have to mention the text explicitly here because you've been talking about them for the whole paper, and you will be talking about them as we go on into your sort of summary or summation of your body section, which is what follows. In the civil rights movement of the 1960s, Dr. King put himself on the front line of brave social justice warriors seeking to eliminate the segregationist policies and laws in Birmingham. And by presenting an eloquent defense of his actions, served as a shining example for civil rights activists for years to come. All right, and so this sort of, in brief, sums up what that first paragraph here discusses in more detail. So there shouldn't be anything quoted here. It should not be anything copied directly from that paragraph. It should be basically summing up that paragraph. Again, this whole paragraph, this conclusion, is to kind of remind the reader of the key points of your essay, just to make a lasting impression with them of what your whole argument was. Okay, and then I move on. As I said, this paragraph was redacted, but had I written about Josephine Baker, this sort of would have been the central idea of that paragraph. Likewise, Josephine Baker, a celebrity considered by many to be privileged in the climate of Jim Crow, gave an impassioned speech at the March on Washington, and in so doing, persuasively conveyed how much further America had to go towards achieving true liberation for all people, regardless of skin color. And so, again, I don't believe we didn't discuss Josephine Baker in detail in class, but yeah, her speech essentially talked about drawing a comparison between what she experienced in America she was a sort of a famous singer of the time, as well as what she experienced in France and other countries in Europe, but France primarily. So, and she said she had much better treatment in Europe, and so that's what I would have discussed there. And this would be kind of a summation of that central idea. I am making a transition, please note, between my ideas here. So these are similar, right? So Dr. King was leading in his way towards trying, to lead people towards social justice this way. And Josephine Baker was also trying to lead people towards social justice in her own way. But she was going in the same direction as he was. So I said likewise, and that's a good transition for that. Lastly, you should have some kind of final, insightful, or profound remark about your paper, which should sort of tell the reader, why is this important? Why does this matter to me? And so using some tie-ins to sort of current events, and I know these are a tad dated, but they should be ones that, are still in the national consciousness, as it were. Let's read this, and I'll point those out a little in more detail. It is now up to us to decide as we witness tragedies like the slaying of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown and the ongoing academic achievement gaps between whites and their black and brown I should say white students. So this is obviously a draft, still working on this. And their black and brown counterparts, how we might live up to these great leaders' examples to achieve true freedom for all. All right. And so, these are obviously, topical of the moment, Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. You can use other examples of, if you have police brutality examples, things, references that people would understand, as well as the ongoing achievement gap that is still ongoing and has been going on, since desegregation of schools, since we started tracking it. So this is still an issue, and this is something that continues to sort of be a weight on us achieving true freedom for all. And I do make sure that there is some connection, live up to these great leaders' examples. So I do sort of make that positive connection between what we just heard about or read about with Dr. King and Josephine Baker and the goals that they had and how that relates to our own life. Lastly, I did include a works cited page. And just as in the demo, this should be on the last clean page. So this one only goes a little bit into page 3, but you're still going to have this big gap because you need to put your works cited page on the first clean page. And you can cite just like this. And in fact, so all of you will be taking your text from collections. So pretty much all of this will be the same for all of your entries. They should be listed, your entries should be listed last name first, right, for each entry in alphabetical order. So please make sure that you're doing that in this format. So short stories, essays, shorter works are in quotes like this. I think pretty much all of the texts that we dealt with this unit should be in quotation marks. So that should be pretty easy for you. This CR means that it's from the close reader. So please make sure that if you are taking it from the close reader that you indicate that here. Otherwise, if you just say pages 99 to 104, I'll assume that means in the hardcover text, and that is not the text that's going to come up if I look for it there. And I believe that's it. There are only 2 entries here. You are going to need at least 3, just so you know. So even though there are only 2 entries here, you do need 3. And that is it. That should be the end. As I said, this is posted to your Q4 SWA assignment. Just so you know, it is due on the 29th. That is Friday at 11:59 p.m. That will be graded, and I'll get those around back to you next week. If you feel the need to revise, you can definitely do that. That is if you turn them in on time. Otherwise, you do have until June 5th to submit a final draft, which will go in for a final summative grade. So again, it's been nice working with you throughout this year. I think many, if not most of you, have grown as readers and writers. I hope you keep reading into the summer, find something you want to read, because that honestly is probably the best way to develop your reading and writing talents. And yeah, perhaps I'll see you next year. Otherwise, all the best.